Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well. I am on holiday at the moment. I didn't upload for a couple of days because the news has been dominated by this awful footage of this murder in America of an Iryna Zarutska, a Ukrainian refugee, by a black guy on public transport. She was just sitting there minding her own business and he just stabs her in the throat. It's absolutely awful, the footage. I didn't want to see it myself, but it's all over Twitter or X, as it's now known. And I do understand what some people are saying about, look, I wouldn't advise women and children watch it, obviously, but I do understand the point some people are making about you have to look at these things and understand how bad it is. You know, you can't basically hide from it. And I think we've wanted to do that for a long time. But anyway, I didn't want to cover it because, you landed having a nice time and all that. But I thought I've got to cover it because it is a major event for many people. And I think you may have seen already many people are speaking about how awful it is, and they're obviously correct on that. But I think what I wanted to speak on was what this means and how it's a line in the sand. And I think many people, especially when you see them on X, have just reached their limit with this mass violence that's going on, especially in America, but we're seeing it across Europe as well. Now, first thing I think we need to say about this is, I know some people aren't fond of Elon. I made a video about Elon Musk the other day. I know some people see him as a bit tame and a bit sort of caught up in populism or sloppyism and all that. And that's a fair criticism. But as I said in the video, you've got to give the guy time. Like, none of us just woke up one day and became based and red-pilled, quote unquote. It's a process. I think most people don't want to be nasty. There's always the kind of extremists who want to scream and shout and just hate because of their own personal issues. But you get them on every faction of politics. Just the mainstream media that likes to depend that on the right only. It's especially bad on the left, actually. But the point I'm making is the average person, you don't want to be nasty to anybody, but the more you see these videos, which on Twitter are daily at this point, the more you start thinking something has gone very, very wrong. And it does seem like Elon Musk is slowly waking up to that realization. And I do think whether he is or he isn't, there is something here that we have to note, which is we just wouldn't know about these things if it wasn't for Twitter and X, because the mainstream media have tried to bury this. There's all these tweets going around about how the Associated Press have got naught articles on this. May change now because X has made so much noise. But there was, thousands upon thousands on George Floyd, which is a questionable case anyway, as we now know. But the point is, it's clearly showing the liberal system and how it works. And it's just appalling. It's just appalling. This is an absolutely brutal murder, and they have lied about it, tried to hide it at every turn, and they've tried to deny there's even a racial element to it, which there is. And this is where we start with this. If and when it does reach the liberal types or the news media there, which is rare, the line has been, it's just a madman. This is just a story about how we need to deal with our crazy people. Nothing to do with race. Well, then the footage comes out and he says, I got that white girl. So it's not just a madman. There is a racial element to it. All right, let's say he is mad. Okay, well, we've got that he's mad. Well, how did he become mad? He's a black guy in America. It's probably safe to say he was smoking lots of weed. It's very common out there. On top of that, he was probably listening to violent gangster rap music. On top of that, he was probably listening to all of those radical black folks talking about how everything in their life that's wrong is white people's fault. And he's been hammered with that message since he's young. And he's a damaged, disturbed person who's been fueled by this anti-white animus that's come from the mainstream, as well as, these more radical niche accounts out there. But it's in the mainstream, that's the point. Hollywood hammers this message constantly. And this is the first thing to speak about. It's all well and good to say, he's unwell. But what's made him so unwell, and what's filled this unwell person's head with all this radicalism towards white people that he thinks he's going to go and stab a 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee in the throat? That's the question. And of course, we're never going to get an answer to that. What we'll hear about is extreme online content in the other direction. They're trying to radicalise, people. I'm sorry, I'm sure there's always one or two out there that are doing that, but most people are just reporting what's gone on here and the stunning hypocrisy from the liberal mainstream. That just, you can't really draw anything other than they just despise us, I mean, what else are you supposed to draw from this? I don't want to, get into hyperbole myself, but, look at how they respond to George Floyd. Would they respond the same way if it was a crazed white man doing it to a 23-year-old black girl, who was there from Ghana or whatever? I don't think they would. I think we'd be hearing about it a lot more, and I think they'd be very eager to push the racial dimension here. But this is the point. We've been hammered by this for so long, it seems normal for the liberal media to take this line. And we all know they wouldn't if it was someone of a different group. But this is the point. We are now at this state where, to be honest, I think many people are starting to think upon group lines. And you can say that's evil, and you can say, oh, how twisted. But the reality is everybody else does. I saw a tweet from that David Aronovich guy. He's a journalist over here in the UK. Jewish, I think you can tell by his surname. And his tweet was something like, well, this is terrible that a black guy stabbed a white girl, but what about rates of domestic abuse, Well, all right, that's a serious problem, I'm sure, but there's not the time to try and do whataboutery. And we all know if it was a Jewish girl, to be blunt, would he take that same line? I dare say he'd be like, oh, here we go again. This is what Jews have had to endure in the past, it's starting again. He would take that line. And I just say that because it's happened so many times. I don't say that because I woke up one day and started thinking like that. I think it's footage like this again and again and again, and the liberal media taking the line it does again and again and again, that makes people think no one out there is protecting, to be blunt, young white people. They don't care about them. And that's not me calling for radicalism. That's not me calling for any violence. It's just me noticing. But even that is seen as evil. You can't notice. That's the message from the mainstream. Just do what we say. And if you get murdered, that's one of those things. One of those things. Of course, this is why this is blown up so much on Twitter, or X, as it's called. And one thing that I think it's good that people are seeing is just this insane rate of black crime. It's out of control in America. It's not much better here either in the UK or in Europe in general, but America is out of control, especially towards white people. The disparity. I mean, again, the liberal line is, well, most violence is intra-racial, and that's true, as in black on black is the most common crime, that's true. But black on white massively outweighs white on black. That's completely counter to what you'd hear from the liberal system. I've even seen, in elements of black Twitter, they're saying, oh, well, this is just the result of 400 years of oppression. What, a Ukrainian girl? What's she done? Ukraine's got no history with black people. But this is the next point as well. It's why I've been saying, in the modern world, we've got to start thinking along that European level, because we're just seen as evil whites by these people. No matter where you come from, no matter if you're Ukrainian, English, French, American, you're just a toxic white bigot, no matter what you've done, no matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you're a 23-year-old girl just trying to go home. But anyway, the point I'm making here is this is why this has exploded, and why many people are starting to think the Liberal project isn't working. They're lying to you. And one of the main, again, dimensions of this is nobody helped this poor girl. If you do go and watch the footage and, steel yourself if you do, you'll see that in the aftermath, this girl doesn't know what's happened. She's scared. She's shocked. And then she's basically collapsing. And she's on her own. And the tube, to be blunt, is full of black folks. And they just walk off and leave her. Now, again, you could say, oh, that they're just frightened. But it does beg the question, if it was a white guy doing it to a black girl, would they help the black girl? You be the judge. Hard to say. Or is it? But this is the point. We're told constantly diversity is our strength. It wasn't our strength then. She was left to die alone. But anyway, this is coming to the key point of all of this is, with the Liberal project as it's going in America, in England, in France, in Australia, in the West, is this going to get better? Is the mainstream going to see this as a line in the sand? I mean, Trump has come out and said you need to deal with violent criminals with violence. Now, I think many of us can appreciate someone finally wanting to get tough on these criminals and these appalling crimes. But can he even mention what's really going on here? Because if he does, if he was to really say out loud what's going on, would he even lose his seat? Would the powers that be around him say that's too much? That's going against the Liberal programme too much. You can't say that. But basically, America and the West is turning into South Africa, where we're seen as the eternal enemy. And again, that's not me being radicalized. That's just the reality. I wish I was wrong. And again, I'm not calling for any violence. I'm not calling for anybody to be cruel to anyone. I'm fully aware that, most black folks are perfectly nice. And there are good people in all groups. I'm fully aware of that. But the point is, as many people are pointing out online, you don't know sometimes when you sit down on the tube or in the subway in America, if the guy sitting behind you has been radicalized by the liberal media, and has decided you're pure evil and he's smoked so much skunk his brain has gone haywire. You don't know. And this is the point. This is the place that people are coming to. And you can call them evil and racist. But as many people are saying, at what point do you say, okay, well, all right, I'm evil and racist? Even though I don't hate people en masse. Nothing against people. But if you want to call me that, fine. But at least I get to protect myself. At least there is some defense against this that I can implement by just staying out of the way. Not being violent, not being aggressive, not being mean to anyone. Just staying out of the way. To be honest, I think that's the point that many people are getting to. But of course, this is all just backing through the liberal frame. I'm just an evil racist. I just need more propaganda, I think. And we need more mass immigration, more multiculturalism, and everything will magically fix. That seems to be the liberal line on things now. I saw some story as well here in the UK saying the guy who was one of the planners behind 7/7 is set to be released or has been released, and the judge wished him well. You think this again is just it's a symbol of where we're at. I thought that can't be real when I read that headline. And how many experiences have you had like that? I thought this is one of these Sun, Daily Mail things, But you read into the story, he basically did say that. You think this is just out of control. But anyway, I think the point I'm making in this video is, if you take all the emotion away, and I do think it's important to take the emotion away, like I say, it's not all black people. Not all black people are bad. It's not what I'm saying. I'm calling for any violence or being mean to anyone. But if you take the emotion away and ask the question, is the civilization, or if you can even call it that anymore, is the system, the liberal world and the globalist overlords they're building, is the system they're building safe? And that's the big question. And to me, it seems like it's not. And it's not getting safer. Is it going to get better? Are they willing to lie so you only see certain things and they tell you a certain story? Again, at this point, we have to ask, are things going to fundamentally improve in the Western world? And it seems to me that they're just not going to. And at this point, you could say, or they will say, well, this is just an isolated case. But it's not. It's not. Go on Twitter. This is extreme, obviously. It's certainly on the more crazy end of things. But broadly speaking, there are videos of crazy violence like this every day on Twitter and X. And the crime rates speak for themselves as well. So this is a problem. Again, we can bury our head in the sand, talk about the lovely liberal rhetoric. I'm sure the powers that be will create another Green Mile or 12 Years a Slave to make you feel guilty and everything's your fault, and it always will be. But slowly, I think people are getting to the point where they think, I've had enough. I don't want to live like this. This is just crazy. And the liberal system tries to act so humane. Oh, we're better than you. Oh, don't be racist. We're the caring ones. Well, look at the world you're creating. It's violent, it's unsafe. And when 23-year-old white refugees are murdered, you just want to bury it and pretend it's not happening. So I think this is a line in the sand for many people, and I think it should be as well. I think someone said this is our Rosa Parks moment. Well, I can understand what they're saying, quite frankly. And again, like I say, I have to say this because this is the world we're in. They wouldn't do this to other groups, but I'm not calling for any violence, not calling for anyone to be nasty, but it is the time where I think you have to start thinking, is the liberal project working? And is it time to just peacefully and quietly go your own way? Anyway, these are some of my thoughts. Do let me know what you think down below. Do consider subscribing to the channel if you're new.